Woodward says, once again, worse than Watergate. Portland bans facial recognition, smearing the Sturgis rally, masking 19-month-olds on planes, and why is cancel Netflix trending? Welcome, friends, to the Buck Sexton Show. Great to have you here with me. As always, an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure. Bob Woodward, famous for Watergate, which was a long time ago now. And he likes to appear on CNN because the journalists revere this guy. He is their patron saint, in a sense, even more so than Edward R. Murrow or any of the rest, because Woodward brought down a Republican president. Trust me, if he had brought down a Democrat, he'd be living in a cabin in the woods somewhere under a new name, having grown facial hair to obscure his identity, right? But if you're useful to the left, if the Democrats find you to be somebody who does their bidding, they will forever honor and take care of you as long as you're useful. And Bob Woodward, because he has this aura of the president ender, right? He can end a presidency. They like to trot him out. But the problem with Woodward right now is that they've done this how many times during the Trump presidency? Let's just go over for a moment, shall we? All the reasons why. Now he's finished. Now Trump is done. This time he's gone too far. Well, there was Russia collusion, a lie. The whole thing was a hoax. It was a witch hunt. That was true. But there was that. And then there was the comments that he made during the campaign. Oh, way too far. He's gone too far. About whether it's Khizr Khan. And then later on when he became president, the comments he made at Charlottesville. Oh, it's worse than water. They lied about his comments at Charlottesville. You're noticing a pattern, aren't you? If Trump were so awful, I mean, just apply reason and rationality to this for a moment. If Trump were so terrible, why did they have to keep lying about him? Isn't that noteworthy? Isn't that something that would come to mind? Pretend for a second you don't even support or defend Trump in any way. But wouldn't that make you suspicious? If you had a colleague in the office and someone that you worked with was saying, that guy, he's the worst. He's the worst person in the office. And the colleague who's talking the trash kept lying and you knew he was lying. Wouldn't you start to think maybe the guy that's being defamed is not the problem? That's certainly what we've seen with Trump in all of this. That's the truth of this current situation. That if he were as bad as they say, well, then obviously we wouldn't want him to be president, and he wouldn't be in a very strong position already to win re-election. But they lie about him. And one of their favorite points of attack against him is how much he lies. And they don't understand that if you're somebody who has a very weak relationship with the truth, which our media and the Democratic Party clearly does, people aren't just going to take your word for it that somebody else has problems with their veracity. And then that brings us to this Woodward allegation and what we're all being told here. Oh, well, first, we need to hear it from him, right? We need to hear it from him. We need to have Woodward tell us this. We need to have Bernstein tell us this. Play clip 14.
It is a dereliction of duty recorded as no other presidential dereliction of duty has been, even more so than the Nixon tapes in this instance. So it's going to be very hard to see how this cannot be addressed by Republicans in particular and their candidate for president of the United States. The last time this happened, during the end of Nixon's presidency, the Republican leadership, including Barry Goldwater, the 1964 nominee of his party for president, went to the White House and told Nixon he had to resign. And the facts here are even graver than in Watergate.
Even graver. Woodward and Bernstein, baby, coming out telling us even graver than Watergate. Of course. There you have it. What else do you need to know? Oh, my gosh. Well, then, of course, Trump should resign now. Is that, they impeached him and it was a joke. They had a special counsel against him and it was preposterous. And now they've written a book, one of many. I mean, every week you can expect another big media bombshell about how Trump is worse than Hitler. And the media gets even more irate when we look at this and say, you can't tell us every week that this is the worst thing ever about Trump and expect us to believe that you have good judgment. Expect us to believe that you, lib media, are sane. We're not going to believe you. We're not going to think that your approach to this is reasonable. Quite the opposite. But Bernstein's coming out. Woodward's book, Bernstein's analysis. Oh, it's just like the Nixon era. Worse than the Watergate tapes. How stupid do they think we are? Now, look, there's clearly a benefit for them to do this because they feed this analysis to their own side. They feed this analysis to the people who are obsessed, quite honestly obsessed with an endless diet of anti-Trumpism. The more you can give them that supports this theory that Trump is the worst person in history, the happier they are. But we're in the election cycle now, and ultimately this is all for a purpose, right? And the turnout of the extreme left libs in the blue states is pretty much a fait accompli. I mean, no one really expects that there's not going to be a lot of angry, Antifa-supporting, BLM-loving, liberal lunatics showing up to vote for Biden. But when you're looking at those swing states and you're looking at what's going to be the difference maker here, none of this stuff matters. It's not going to change any minds or opinions. And part of this is the desperation the media has to reassert lost power. They like to think that they're at least able to control the conversation about a presidency, and that if they went all in against a president, as they have against Donald Trump, they could defeat him. But they can't. At least they weren't able to before. They're hoping to be able to do it this time. And the desperation is only going to grow the closer to this we get. I saw the latest polls today, the toss-up states, and I there's so many polls, I can't remember which one this was, but the toss-up states are Florida, North Carolina. Ohio is trending Republican, but there are only a handful of states that are really totally up for grabs right now that are going to be meaningful in all of this. And there are a whole lot that are leaning Republican or leaning Democrat that obviously could switch, but now it's all about the scoreboard, folks. It's all about winning. And I'll just say this now. I am certainly not tired of winning. I am not tired of it. The president said at some point we'll be there, maybe after 4 more years. But for right now, we need to batten down the hatches and prepare for the onslaught of propaganda and lies that are coming our way. We have to get ready for all of this with our shields high, prepared for anything and everything. Because last time they thought cruise control would get it done. Last time they assumed if only things continued as they were, Hillary Clinton, hello, would be president of the United States. What happened? Was she lost? This time around, they're leaving nothing to chance. They are colluding behind the scenes. Every day where there's quiet, every day where you feel like it's kind of a boring news cycle, just remember that thousands and thousands of paid left-wing activists who call themselves journalists are gathering in newsrooms and at different cable news stations and in Hollywood and you name it. All the different hubs of communication, taste-making, and places that are able to engage in propaganda, they're all hands on deck. And they're going to do everything they can to defeat this guy. This Woodward book, we won't even remember it in a week or two. I know they're going to do this drip of, oh, and then there's another thing that's terrible. Oh, and then there's another thing that's terrible. We care about how the president has done in office. That's where this should actually be fought. That's what's really at issue. But instead, the focus of the anti-Trump left is always a thing that someone says he said that can't be confirmed, or a thing that he did say, in this case on the record and taped, that is completely taken out of context. Let's remember this before we have to continue to defend against these unfair smears. I mean, the media pulling clips of Trump from February of 2020 and presenting them out of context to make him look reckless on COVID. This is pure election propaganda. You could do this to every single public figure who spoke about COVID back then. FAUCI, Dr. Fauci, said it was like, hey, it's no big deal. The CDC told us don't wear masks. They even told us it was wrong to wear masks because we're going to be taking them from essential frontline workers. It's just completely and utterly, transparently dishonest. But you're going to see so much of that. And remember this, friends. They don't have to win the argument. They just have to beat you down with the arguments. They don't have to convince you. They just have to overwhelm you. That's what's really going on right now. That's the flood the zone, kitchen sink, everything they've got strategy to defeat Donald Trump. So don't become demoralized. Don't feel like it can't happen or there's just too much. Or what did we learn in 2016? If we stick to our guns, if we stay with our convictions, we will get through this, and you'll have 4 more years. But, man, it's going to be nasty. I mean, this is going to be a bar fight that nobody's going to enjoy, but we got to win it. What does the COVID-19 pandemic have to do with you losing your home? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. The FBI has warned Americans that cybercrime's up 75% from the beginning of this pandemic, and home title theft is actually a cybercrime. Here's how it works. The bad guys find your information, which is online. Then they use a quitclaim deed to kick you off your home's title, put themselves on it, and start taking out loans against the equity in your home. You often won't find out about this until you start getting the bills in the mail or perhaps even a foreclosure notice. You've got to take action today. Protect your home with a virtual barrier with Home Title Lock. HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code BUCK will get you 30 free days of protection. You can also check and see if you're already a victim of this crime and don't know it. HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code BUCK for 30 free days of protection. Check it out today. Speaking of Dr. Fauci, not a man that you would ever think would rush to the president's defense on anything, not somebody that any intelligent, reasonable human being would ever say is a pro-Trump partisan. But when you're thinking about the Fauci, you got to remember, he's already come out there and said this whole Trump, remember, the allegation here is that Trump dishonestly downplayed the virus. What's the strategy here? No one ever answers that question. You're going to tell everybody, it's no big deal in February and hope they don't notice all the infections and people dying in March and April and May? No. What's a realistic explanation for this? The president was trying to avoid panicking people while he was taking government action based upon the experts that he inherited from our health bureaucracy. But there's one health bureaucrat who's at least willing to say that, no, sorry, this whole Woodward thing about how he played something down, it's not true. Play 7.
I don't recall anything different than in our discussions that we had with the president that he said things quite similar publicly. So I didn't read the book. I didn't really go over any of the text since it just came out. But, when in my discussions and the discussions of other task force members with the president, we're talking about the reality of what was going on. And then when we would get up in front of the press conferences, which were very, very common after our discussions with the president, he really didn't say anything different than we discussed when we were with him. So I may not be tuned in to the right thing that they're talking about, but I didn't really see any discrepancies between what he told us and what we told him and what he ultimately came out publicly and said.
So did you get a sense that he was or wasn't playing this down?
No, I didn't. I didn't get any sense that he was distorting anything. I mean, in my discussions with him, they were always straightforward about the concerns that we had. We related that to him. And when he would go out, I'd hear him discussing the same sort of things.
Was Trump distorting things? Here is the president's chief scientific advisor on all of this saying, no, he wasn't. So what are we even talking about? Shouldn't this be case closed? Shouldn't this be, what's all the hubbub? Oh, of course not, because this is all for a purpose, and the purpose is not the truth. As people have pointed out, including the president, who pointed out before, isn't it interesting? And I got a retweet from the president today, just saying, but isn't it interesting that Bob Woodward would be willing to hold on to all of this? Willing to hold on to all of this for months and months and months, to make sure that he could drop it with his book sales, to make sure that it would benefit him. If the president was really that clear and present a danger to public health, wouldn't Woodward, as a journo who's supposed to be speaking the truth to the public so they can make informed decisions for our democracy, wouldn't a journo have to come forward right away and say, guys, the president's lying to you about this virus and he's putting your lives at risk? If you really believe that right away, wouldn't you be a moral monster to hold on to that information? I think the answer is most decidedly yes. And so what does that tell us about this? All these books that you see that are, these anti-Trump books, they always have to sell them with one or two juicy tidbits. There's always one or two things that they'll throw into the mix that's, ooh, here's the big bombshell revelation. Then people buy the book, they realize it's slapdash, not that interesting, a lot of just trying to fill up space on the pages to justify the $25 hardcover price. And you realize the revelations weren't even really revelations. Trump, way back when, was dealing with Jim Acosta, the hostile press corps, in the early days of the pandemic. And this is what he said about his response to this. Play clip 1.
What do you say to Americans who believe that you got this wrong?
And I do want them to stay calm. And we are doing a great job. If you look at those individual statements, they're all true. Stay calm. It will go away. You know it is going away. And it will go away. And we're going to have a great victory. And it's people like you and CNN that say things like that it's why people just don't want to listen to CNN anymore. You could ask a normal question. The statements I made are, I want to keep the country calm. I don't want panic in the country. I could cause panic much better than even you. I could do much. I would make you look like a minor league player. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to have our country be calm and strong and fight and win. And it will go away. And it is incredible, the job that all of these people are doing, putting them all together, the job that they're doing. I am very proud of the job they're doing, that Mike Pence is doing, that the task force has done, that Honeywell and Procter & Gamble and Mike and all of these people have done. I'm very proud. It's almost a miracle, and it is, the way it's all come together. And instead of asking a nasty, snarky question like that, you should ask a real question.
President making very clear that was months and months and months ago. It's like, yeah, I don't want people to panic. It is going to go away. What's the alternative to it's going to go away? It's never going to go away? Our society is ruined. Civilization as we know it is over? I don't think that would be an intelligent thing for Trump to say, which is why he didn't, which is why he was saying we're going to win. But Democrats want the country to lose. That's the problem. And if we're going to play the what were they saying then about COVID game, remember back in February, Nancy Pelosi? Here's what she had to say. Play clip 2.
You should come to Chinatown Precautions have been taken by our city. We know that there's a concern about tourism traveling all throughout the world, but we think it's very safe to be in Chinatown and hope that others will come.
She's like the mayor in Jaws who insists on saying over 4th of July weekend, the beaches will be open. Remember that? She's just, she doesn't care at all.
Okay, come on down to Chinatown. It's going to be, my butler says that he knows a gardener who knows a chauffeur who loves the Lunar New Year festival.
That's great, Nancy. Good job. Good job. Yeah, that's what she was saying. Precautions were taken. Do you think precautions were taken? No. No, they were not. No masks, no social distancing, no nothing. But nonetheless, this is where we are, folks. This is what we are being told now. They're really just hoping that they can convince the ignorant and they can demoralize the informed. That's the Democrat plan. That's what they're hoping to do. And unfortunately, because they have so many allies in the media, including the increasingly odious and stupid Morning Joe over there. Play clip 3.
Donald Trump says he didn't want Americans to panic. No, he just wanted to sit by and watch them die, hoping the Dow Jones Industrial and the S&P would stay healthy enough to get him reelected. But Americans got sicker by the day. You watched your parents die.
Trump wanted to watch your parents and you die. That's what you're being told. That's what you're being told. That's considered commentary on a major news channel. The president doesn't care about a single. They believe this, by the way. I remember on the Bill Maher show in February when I was on the panel and was, just being talked over and wasn't, it's a mess. But you can't show them that you're going to back down. I remember when I was on that panel. And I kept saying, can we all just agree? President Trump doesn't want, no matter what you think of him morally, as president, he doesn't want people to die from this because that hurts his presidency. And we're all pretty sure he likes being president, likes being in charge. And they wouldn't concede that. They're like, no, Trump doesn't care. No, there was no willingness to meet me in the middle or just meet me in the realm of sanity where I'm declaring that Trump doesn't want people to die from this. Chris Hayes, also at MSNBC, just this morning, wrote this on Twitter. Important to keep in mind that not just McConnell, but just about the entire GOP caucus and also all the staffers that work for them are also complicit in the unnecessary deaths of tens of thousands of Americans. Such weasel words, right? Complicit in the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans. How? Should they be criminally charged? What is their level of culpability? And I would want to know, is every person who got on a subway or a bus or went to a restaurant or a bar and didn't know they had COVID and coughed on someone, are they complicit in an unnecessary death to be held morally culpable? That's going to be a very large list of people, isn't it? And how would you ever know? How could you ever prove it? You can't. But it's about the propaganda. It's not about getting to the truth here. This is going to be a whole new line of attack. It's not just Trump mismanaged the COVID pandemic, they'll say, or that he downplayed the risks from it. Trump is equivalent to a mass murderer. You're going to hear Democrats say that. In fact, just give it time. That term will emerge from the lips of Democrats on television. I would say on radio, but who listens to Democrat radio? That's going to happen. They don't care that it's reckless. They don't care that it's just a stupid thing to say. In fact, if anything, they enjoy being able to abuse the platforms they have to settle personal scores because they view this president as worthy of destruction at all costs. Doesn't matter what they have to do. And that's why you have Biden, for example, piling on with the Woodward book. Yeah, this is going to, Russia collusion didn't do it, But the interviews with Bob Woodward, that's the last straw. Play 19.
Just flat lie. That's wrong. It's totally irresponsible. Totally irresponsible.
What could be a consequence for that?
Kick him out of office is the consequence.
Kick him out of office for this one, Biden says. Kick him out of office. Yeah, that seems fair. That seems fair, doesn't it? That doesn't seem completely insane. But what else are they going to say? Vote for the elderly loser that nobody thinks is impressive in any way, but he's the best we got now because of the situation of the Democrat Party? Well, that is pretty much what they're telling you. That's what they're telling you. And you know, another thing I want you all to be very aware of is the politics surrounding the vaccine. I mean, this is something that all of us should be prepared for, because this is where you'll see that there are no limits to the Democrats' perfidious conduct. There will be no limits to the extent they're willing to go to in order to convince people that Donald Trump is responsible for the deaths of thousands and thousands of people. Personally responsible. It's like he ordered them into COVID camps or something. That's the attitude. That's going to be the way that they talk about it. You know, they have no shame about this. There's no part of them that feels even the least bit of remorse for making the suggestions that they do about this president. They think it's all absolutely fine. And so I just want to make sure that we're clear. They're going to play dirty on that too. Play for me Nancy Pelosi here. Oh, she's so sure that there's going to be a vaccine, but not sure when, right? Doesn't know when it's actually going to happen. And she's watching this program like a hawk because Nancy really knows anything about anything. Play 10.
But the fact is, I'm very pleased that AstraZeneca has stopped their trial because they saw a problem and that needs to be investigated. I'm so proud that the pharmaceutical companies have said they won't market or promote a vaccine unless it is properly approved by the independent scientific advisory committee set up for such a thing. I'm glad they're saying that because I have concerns about what the president might want to do to the timing and politicizing of the research that is there.
Oh, that's right. Trump will rush through an unsafe vaccine. That's Nancy's position. That's what she really believes. Trump will rush through an unsafe vaccine. That's how evil he is. First of all, how would he even do that? All you would need, the drug companies are not going to take the liability. The drug companies are not going to take the risk of putting forward a drug that, let's say, does have adverse reactions in enough people that it shouldn't have been approved. They're not going to do that. What do you think? Trump's going to have an executive order to override the FDA? I mean, then people really would freak out about this. But no, what are they doing? They're complaining about what Trump will do when no reasonable person thinks he's going to do it. This is kind of a standard operating procedure for them. This is not a new thing. They're trying to tell you, oh, we should criticize him today for what we say he'll do tomorrow, even though it's never going to happen. Surgeon General Jerome Adams was very clear on this. And, you know, there are lives at stake. Our country needs its life back. We need to go back to the way that we have existed for a long time before this pandemic and will for a long time after. But at this point, delay is just unnecessary punishment. At this point, delay is making the situation worse. There's no benefit from it. But Democrats don't care. Here's Surgeon General Jerome Adams. Play 9.
Here's what I can tell you. As a member of the coronavirus task force, there has been no politicization of the vaccine process whatsoever. We have a process in place that I trust as a doctor As a dad, I get vaccinated every year. I get my family vaccinated every year.
No politicization, he's saying. And now, even if you think that Trump is so corrupt and ruthless that he would try to do something here, what would that be exactly? As I said, an executive order to give the vaccine to everybody with the drug company saying it's, or with the FDA saying it's not ready, would be disastrous for Trump. He knows that. But so what do Democrats want to do? Pretend that, that they want to criticize him for something that he has not done, and at least make everyone think, oh, I don't know. Don't expect that this Project Warp Speed is going to bear fruit. Don't get your hopes up, America. Be depressed. Be upset. Be worried. Let that anxiety just seep through your mind. Let that happen. Because when people are upset and anxious, what do they want? Change. And what would be a way, just a basic human impulse to try to acquire change that's coming up very soon? The election, of course. So that's what they're going to do. Push for everyone to be upset, because then they think they have a better chance of winning. And all the suffering that occurs between now and then doesn't matter. They don't care. And I really mean this. Right? They believe, because on our side, I think that there's always an understanding that politicians are imperfect and life is hard and there are challenges that you can't always meet or succeed in getting past. And on the Democrat side of things, it's just defeat Trump, because if we don't, the country's over. If you don't get rid of Trump, everything crumbles and everyone dies. And I know that's hyperbolic and insane, but they're hyperbolic and insane. So I'm just looking at what they're saying and doing and referring to it. I'm just seeing the way things are and having a chat about what I think is actually going on with the Democrat Party. Oh, and then, of course, there's the bill that's supposed to bring relief to people in this current challenging economic climate. Where are the Democrats on that one, you may ask?
Is it better to go forward with some?
No, it isn't. Now, thank you so much for that question, because I hear it a lot, and clearly it springs from all the good intentions we all have to help people as soon as we can. It does nothing. There are millions of kids who are food insecure, millions, maybe 14 million in our country, food insecure. He has nothing for that. There are millions of their families to be victims of evictions because they can't pay the rent. They don't care about that.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Nancy Pelosi's the one who is stopping money from getting to people. Nancy Pelosi's the one who has, at every stage of the relief process, played political games. What is a political game? Let's define it. Instead of just dealing with the problem at hand, how to get money in the hands of workers who have lost their jobs because of government policies that, by the way, were unnecessary and stupid to lock us down for months and months. Government has an obligation to help those workers. It's not their fault that they don't have paychecks anymore. It's not their fault that they are going through this economic stress. It is, in fact, the government's fault. But when the government then is supposed to try to make some amends, not that they can fully deal with the situation, Pelosi says,
I want a pony.
You know, there's unreasonable demands. Pelosi's probably got plenty of ponies. I'm sure she owns a ranch somewhere. She has to help take care of the animals, of course. Pelosi throws all this other stuff in the mix. Mitch McConnell sees this. He understands what's going on. Play 15.
At this point, it's just silly season on the Democratic side. They've run out of excuses not to legislate, and even their cheap shots just backfire in embarrassing ways.
Yep. Cocaine Mitch ain't playing no games. He sees what they're doing. What have I told you about the Make America Miserable Again campaign of the Democrats? They want people to be unhappy. They want them to be unable to pay their bills. They want this unease, this anxiety to continue because they benefit from it. Because they know that makes it harder for Trump to turn around and say to the American people, look at what a great job I've done. Even though, I'm just going to say it, Trump has done a very good job as president. Trump is the best Republican president we have had since Ronald Reagan. It's just a fact. It's just reality. Does that mean he's perfect? Does that mean I agree with everything? Of course not. But I would never, I wouldn't agree with everything Reagan did either. Reagan signed an amnesty that was a disaster. And he admitted it was a disaster before people say, Buck, don't criticize St. Reagan. Look, no one's perfect. But what they're trying to do here couldn't be any more obvious, I think. The moment that you take a step back and say, hold on a second, what's really happening here, you can see. They're doing everything in their power. They're using their power to make people upset and frightened and miserable and to turn us against each other. You know, the left's answer is not to stand up and say, we have a better future for America. They're not telling me things are going to be better for me or you. No. Republicans? Republicans who earn a paycheck and obey the laws and try to live their lives responsibly? No. You haven't done enough to help those who don't obey the laws. You haven't done enough to subsidize those who don't pay their own bills. They're not telling us you're lucky if we win because things will get better for you. They're saying our constituencies, the very, very rich and the very, very poor, the elites and the dependent class, that's what makes up the Democrat Party. They will benefit at the expense of everybody else. Just like as Bastiat, fantastic book, Bastiat wrote in The Law, the lie that people think they can live at the expense of every other man. Central to the Democrats.